Welcome back to the Meta Forecast here on the Shuffle Squad channel. I'm PJ, your host, here with our lovely guest to talk about the last North American regional event in the season before we head into NAIC. So we're going to talk to all these people. We're going to introduce them first, obviously, so you know who everybody is. We're going to start off with Aidan. Aidan, you're joining us here again on the Meta Forecast. Let the people know where they should know you from.
What's up? I'm Aidan. I play Pokemon a little bit, and I'm also a honorary member of the Shuffle Squad. And they sometimes call me TSS Khus, but that's just like my background name. I'm actually sponsored by the Daily Grind. Shout out the Daily Grind. Shout out Jerry the Goat. And yeah, that's like pretty much all you need to know about me. I mean, I kind of play the game.
You do play the game. You've come pretty close to winning some regionals, so you can pat yourself on the back there, too. We're going to hop over to our next guest.
I have won a regional.
You have won a regionals. That's right. You've come close to winning a second regionals. Though
that one we don't talk about as much. That one we don't talk about as much.
Pidgeot and whatever. Oh, we'll move on. Emily, let's talk to you. Emily, Lyric Foreman, joining us here from the lovely TSS Casters division. Emily, where should the people know you from?
Hey guys, what's up? Your favorite Shuffle Squad personality hire is back here on the Meta Forecast to constantly dunk on your favorite decks. You guys should know me from, at this point, Twitter, Twitch, anywhere on the internet, known for my casting. Still doing the Pokemon thing. I play a lot more Pokemon than Aidan Khus, apparently, because I play this game every day. And I'm still playing your favorite mid-tier and horrible decks. And I'm still expecting to get results, and I still don't have any. So that's okay. But happy to be here as usual.
And last but certainly not least, we have your favorite friendly person in the Pokemon TCG community. We have
that's your title.
Dan Hugar, the friendliest Pokemon TCG player you'd ever meet in your life. Dan, where should the people know you from?
Listen, man, if that's my reputation, I'm doing something right. Like, that's fantastic. So hi, I'm Dan. I'm from Nerd Rage Gaming, Chicago. I became moderately successful at Pokemon this season. Top 8 San Antonio, bubble top 8 at Portland. Lost Zone Teen is a good deck. And then I also was a meme because I have a good deck. And previously I was a meme because I played Centiskorch and Matthew Burris played Bronzong, and I was very sad. So happy to be here talking about stuff.
Awesome. And we're going to talk to you about all the cool Pokemon TCG related things so you can gear up for LA regionals or finish off those cups or challenges. And you know what? You don't even have to, because you probably already have your Worlds invite because it's way too easy this season. But we'll get into that later on as we go. So we're going to first talk about a deck that came out of nowhere. Last weekend we saw 2 top 8 placements of it. We're going to be talking about Banette EX. Now, this is one of my personal favorite Pokemon and personal favorite cards that has come out that hasn't really seen a whole lot of play. I love item lock. I'm a degenerate. Let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. We're going to head over to Ian. Ian is not here joining us, but Aidan is here in Ian's place here. That is your dad, so I commonly get confused because you look so much like him. But we're going to talk about Banette EX and see what your thoughts are on the list. Is it the next big Gardevoir deck in the format that we're going to see more play here coming up to LA?
I think Banette is extremely based. It's like very fun to play. It definitely takes a lot of really good matchups with the popularity of Chien-pao popping off at the Indianapolis Regional Championships and the Stockholm, the gang, John Reagan, Kieran, Grant, especially Grant, Lucas with the double ID in the 9th. They've all been popping off with the deck. Deck's seen a lot of success. Especially like Lost Box with Hermione finishing second. Like there's all these item oriented decks have been finishing really well and like knocking out the Charizards from doing well. So this is like just the perfect time for a deck like Banette to come in and just like wipe the floor with all those item using decks. And the item lock is like really deadly against those decks. The main reason why people were straying away from playing Banette in the first place was because the Charizard matchup was really sus. And I think the Charizard matchup is still really sus, but like you beat all the people that like don't know what they're doing. And like if you can like not hit good Charizard players, and especially since more of the good Charizard players, actually I wouldn't say this for the LATAM regionals, but for our regionals, most of the good players are straying away from Charizard. I know in LATAM they love their Charizard. Everyone loves it. But especially for LA, I think it's still a great play. You have a really good Snorlax matchup. You have a really good matchup into everything. If you just like dodge a couple of those Zards, when I think the Zard percentage is definitely going down compared to the prior regionals that we've had. I think it could be a really good pick for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a little bit more of a difficult deck to play than you would think. You even see somebody like Isaiah Bradner who incorporated Bennett EX into their EUIC list for Giratina and playing it in the Lost Zone lists. I've even called, quote, my basic B version of Bennett EX, where you're just playing it with some poison damage output. You're playing with a Salvatore. We could see something like that come out of the woodwork since we see the other Bennett style deck work, but it does play Spiritomb. Dan, have you played against this deck or seen how the deck is functioning against some of these top meta decks? And why would you or wouldn't you recommend somebody playing that?
I have not played against it very much, and I've seen it function a little bit, and I have a couple friends who love kind of the control locky thing, so they've been trying Bennett for the past year to make it good. I think just item lock in general is real freaking good. So especially when you're going up against stuff that, kind of like Aidan said, you rely on rare candies for most of your strategy, though you can play around it. Anytime you take away a big chunk of someone's game plan, you can put yourself in a good spot. And this is, I think, something people overlook when you're playing maybe something that could be considered a rogue deck. Your opponents don't know what to do against it. So do I think that the exact 60 that Vinny made is what you should play going forward? Vinny's a genius, maybe. But I think if people start to learn how to play around the item lock portion of it, you would just need to kind of introduce enough wrinkles where you keep that advantage of kind of being more of a rogue list and there aren't clear defined lines to take against it. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but yes, the deck is awesome. I know enough about it to maybe figure out a plan into it, but I think your advantage is not a lot of people are going to know how to play effectively into that kind of lock.
Exactly. And we're towards the end of the meta too, so a lot of people are just sticking to the decks that they know, especially these bigger events. As we've seen, people just stick to what they know for the season. They're just going to play Pokemon, right? Now we do talk about item lock, and there are ways to get around it. So we'll hop over to you, Emily, and talk about chien-pao. So we've got chien-pao in the meta. Obviously, one of the decks Bennett is targeting, plays heavy items. We want to get those rare candies out. People are starting to put the middle backs back into the chien-pao list. So what are your thoughts on chien-pao? I know that you've played it for some part of the season here too. Do you think that it's well positioned going into LA regionals?
It is really hard to say, especially because Azul just won with Stall.
Right.
I think when you're it's funny because I just lost to Bennett for the same item locking reason over the weekend to a cup, and it was very infuriating. I think more and more people are throwing in these Aries, more people are throwing in just the Bennetts, and I think if you want to play chien-pao, absolutely still do it. It still has a very favorable Charizard matchup. It still has a great Lost Box matchup if you're able to get those shurikens off. But, you just have to be a little bit more careful. And I think the middle backs master, Hector Ibarra himself, would be very happy to know that I'm advocating for Arctobacks back into the list. I've always said that a middle evolution is pretty good. It's just like when Charizard started to tech in the Charmeleons a little bit more. I think it's just what you got to do now. Earlier, before we were playing around TM Devo, right? And now we just have to play around just Eri. Bennett now. And that's just kind of where the meta is going to go until, we get, Twilight Masquerade in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You can't spell middle without mid. So I feel like that the middle backs is kind of where that stands. I honestly, I've been talking to a lot of players that are hyped up on chien-pao going into the weekend. And they've asked, should I tech for these matchups like Bennett or like Stall, like you mentioned, Emily? And my answer is always just keep the list consistent. That's something that Dan has actually taught me. You just keep consistency in your list. You're going to have bad matchups regardless of the deck that you play. Just take the bad matchups. If you're consistent, you're not going to have those, rounds where your deck doesn't function because now you have the consistency in there. So I do think that chien-pao is still going to be up there in numbers because people know it. People have been playing it. Maybe people transition from playing a different deck in the format to this one now, and this is the blue version of what they played in the past. But I think that chien-pao is still really great. You just have to put in consistency. You have to put in the time to get it to work, because it is a difficult deck to play at a regional event. You have to know how to sequence it. So if you are playing chien-pao, that's my suggestion. Now, another deck that's a little bit difficult, but I think is on the rise, and I'm almost certain to say that this might be the BDIF of our format. Funny enough that we're ending the format. It's Lost Box. And who better to ask than Aidan about Lost Box? You've been playing quite a bit of Lost Box. What do you think about Lost Box in the format right now, Aidan?
I'm gonna go back to the Bonnet point just real quick before I answer this question.
Yes.
I want to shout out Mateus just because I think
Yes.
he's the original person that was like really pushing Bonnet in this format before
Yes.
EUIC, like way back. He was pushing, like he built like a hyper consistent list, was playing it to a lot of online tournaments, posted his list, was pushing Bonnet. I mean, I don't think he's attending that many events, but I just wanted to shout him out real quick.
Absolutely.
To, like, give him some props.
Dominating online events with that.
Yeah,
deck
dominating online events. Like just like won like 3 in a row. And I'm like, dang. Yeah, he was like, I would play this UIC, but I'm not going. But yeah, anyway, back to the Lost Box point. I think Lost Box is actually surprisingly, this could be a hot take, but I don't think it's in that great of a spot going into this event. Just because it had its one finish. I think Lost Box, especially in this format with Eerie, Eerie just kind of like negates a lot of your strategy at some points. It's really annoying. It could just win your opponent games. It just relies on you just not drawing, and there's no real way you could play around Eerie as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very polarizing card for the deck to be printed.
Right.
And like I think Lost Box got its one really good finish of the format, which was at Stockholm. I think if it were to be, I wouldn't be surprised if like a Sablezard deck or something like that did well this weekend. But I don't think like our traditional like Turbo Lost Box deck will probably get a deep finish. I mean, I think it could get top 16, maybe a top 8 finish, but I don't think it'll go really much farther than that. It has an iffy block lax matchup. I mean, I know block lax, and there's not really a lot of ways you can counter for the block lax matchup either.
Right.
It's just like you have to just kind of take it, unless you're gonna play Minior and Glasses. Yeah. And the same thing with chien-pao. Like chien-pao, the Sandshrew is just such a good inclusion in that block lax list and those control decks, because it just stops the Silene and the chien-pao, which can just win you games against control and stuff like that. It stops like the mirror. It just it's so bad for some decks to deal with. But mainly the Lost Box is just like, I think it has a decent Charizard matchup. That's like why it's really good. It beats Charizard, but with Charizard going down, I don't know how relevant that Lost Box will be going into this event. I think you're gonna hit more mirrors than you ever would have, and the Lost Box mirror in this format is less skill oriented as it has been in the past, in my opinion. Just because you have Iron Hands, you have these like huge tempo boosters that can just make the game feel so out of reach, and there's not really like a huge amount of like playability. Like there's playability, and you could obviously outskill your opponent more times than not, but it just doesn't feel like it used to whenever we had like Kyogre, or like before even Hands was a card. It just feels like the game is way too fast now for those mirrors to feel very much in my control. And whenever I go to an event, I really want to play a deck that I feel like all of my matchups feel like they're as in my control as possible.
Right. We've all been burnt by the flower selecting in the past too. You know, there's a lot of decision making throughout a 9-round day 1, and then potentially a 6, to 9-round day 2 if you made it all the way to finals, right? So you have to be in control on most of those games, the majority of the games, and especially, just like you talked about with Eerie in the format. We're going to hop back over to you, Dan, and talk a little bit about this, because you've played a comfy base deck for the majority of the season.
Forever. But yes.
So knowing that Eerie is a card that's pretty relevant in a lot of decks and not just control or stall, what do you think about playing something like Lost Zone Tina, or maybe pivoting to something like a Brent Tonneson style of Lost Box where you're playing Double Moon? There's been the online player, I can never pronounce it, Kakazuki or something like that, that's playing the Sablezard list with Iron Hands, Radiant Charizard, and the Jet Energies to get around the switching aspect. What do you think about those style of decks? Would you pivot off of Lost Zone Giratina if you've been playing it for a while?
So I actually did not play Lost Zone Giratina to Orlando. I picked a different deck, and it was a horrible decision, and I regret it. But I actually don't think Tina's in a good spot right now, and I think Aiden makes a lot of really good points about Lost Zone. Lost Zone, before, the only real disruption was actually just disrupting your hand and kind of shoving it back into your deck. So you were still able to like make effective decisions and keep resources and plan ahead. But also, like Aiden saying, now if someone can delete your 2 Mirage Gate when you had to choose Mirage Gate or Colress on your turn 1, like that's just game over, and you just can't. So I think you're more fragile to that kind of more targeted disruption. I think Eerie is still good. I don't know how many decks are going to keep including it because, kind of like you said, PJ, I think as you get towards the end of the format, like you want to just be able to have things function, especially because people are going to start to pull weird stuff out of the woodwork. So I don't know if a lot of decks that were playing Eerie as like a 1 count are going to want to keep including it, but Block Snorlax is probably on the rise, and I think a really, really good deck in general. And I think Lost Zone, kind of like Aiden said, and this is one of the reasons why I put down Tina, is Tina had a feeling of inevitability in like previous formats where I knew like if I got to play the game, I could win every single game. Now with that disruption from Eerie, with more stall, with like a wider bet of stuff, it's much harder to feel that confident walking in with something like Lost Zone because you're playing one-ofs of everything. Everything's more fragile. So I don't like, it's super strong and it's super good in a vacuum. It's probably the best deck in format. Not in a vacuum with the amount of disruption, kind of how the format is. I don't know if I would love playing it because it's also just going to be a very stressful day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just going to take a brief moment and shout out all of our sponsors to the channel as well. We're going to shout out PTCGL Store, where you can get all of your online codes to play that new Twilight Masquerade cards in your deck, or all the new Masquerade cards in your deck. You can hop over there and use our affiliate code down below in the description of this video. You can also shop at Kayfabe Cards, who will be attending LA Regionals as well. They help support the Shuffle Squad, and you should help support them too as a small growing online business, as well as a storefront over in Utah. They definitely have the best for all card needs there, so shop over at Kayfabe. Now, Emily, we have to have the talk. You and I here.
We're gonna heard that since I was a kid.
We're gonna sit down. Stall. It's a good play, Emily. Stall is a good deck. We've seen that. I've talked to Azul, or I've listened to Azul talk about this. No, as far as it goes, we see Stall gaining traction. It won 2 events. I've been playing Stall for a while. I'm a big Stall believer. What are your thoughts going into LA on how Stall will be doing? Are we going to see a lot more this time around?
Let me talk to you guys, Shuffle Squad viewers, and everybody else who's going to be watching this. You can't deny the inevitable. You're going to hit one, okay? I went into Orlando Regionals. I was 2-0. I was feeling great. And then my good old opponent, round 3, Misfortune Sisters, 3 superior energy retrieval, okay? Can't avoid it. It's going to happen. You have to learn how to fight against this deck. It is good. It's going to get some tech cards going into Twilight Masquerade. Snorlax is going to block your way to victory. You got to learn how to play it, or at least play around it. I was even considering picking up some of the cards just to learn how to like play it myself a little bit better so I can try and find the counterpoint. I will say though, memes aside, Snorlax is like low-key evolving, right? So, you know, we've seen, you know, Pidgeot control now come into the play. We've seen cards like Grabber come back into the format just a little bit more. We're seeing Luxray as well with that beautiful Fang Snipe ability that, you know, we all just love. I mean, personally, I love Luxray, but Fang Snipe, not so much, right? And I think, you know, the combination of a Fang Snipe plus an Airy, and like as we were just talking about with Lost Box, it's devastating, right? I just think it's in a pretty good position, so you just have to really kind of like practice against it, know exactly what to look out for. Dare I say that we might need to throw in a Spirit Tube back into the decks this weekend? Like Fettered in Misfortune definitely does help in the matchups just a little bit, but I definitely think, if anything, Stall is very, very well positioned for this weekend. And I'd be a little bit scared if I was going to NAIC. I'm already thinking ahead.
Whoa.
LA Regionals.
Pump the
I'd be a
brakes.
little scared going to LA Regionals and not really like understanding how my deck were to play around stall. But that's just how I feel about it.
Okay, I could definitely see that, and I do love both of those decks. I know that the version with Pidgeot is a lot harder to play. There's a lot more pieces and parts. I do think that it's a little bit better positioned now that people are aware of Snorlax stall. I will say that for somebody that enjoys degenerate decks, which we know that a lot of the West Coasters do, like those alternative win conditions, and they like the weird style anti-meta decks. We can see stall just as Snorlax stall. It's a pretty easy to play deck as long as you know how to, basically use your supporter cards and the turns that they need to be used, how to get out of locks that you yourself are in, things like that. So Aidan, we're going to hop back over to you for a little bit. What version of stall is your current favorite, or what would you suggest to somebody that's a seasoned player to play at LA?
A seasoned player, I would tell you not to play stall at all. Because I think the deck is like a little bit too well known. Like it's good as a blind meta call into an event like maybe like Stockholm, like a smaller event where there's just going to be like you could predict the meta a lot better. This is a 2,000 player event. There's going to be everything. There's going to be decks that auto win you. There's going to be decks that auto lose you. There's going to be decks everywhere in the middle. You cannot get in control when you hit. I think you just want to take a deck with less polarizing matchups, and like a deck that takes more solid 50-50s around the board. It's just like stall is not a good deck for a really good player to bring to a huge event unless the meta is very solid. Like Indie meta is very solid. It's gonna be Zard and Chien-pao. Like those are gonna be the two decks that take up more than 50% of the meta.
Right.
Like around there. Like this event, the meta is gonna be a decent amount more diverse. I would feel a lot more riskier bringing that stall into this tournament. I mean, like I think it's a good play if you are lost on what deck to play. Like if you just like have no idea, pick up Snorlax stall, put in a Sandshrew, you'll be good to go. Like I'd expect like a 10-4-1 record, but like I wouldn't really expect to go much farther than that. Just because like the recent results is just like you're gonna throw Banette into the mix. Like I think some people will be picking up that deck for sure. Like the Lost Box decks are throwing in Spiritomb. Like that's an easy one card inclusion for most Lost Box decks.
Right.
I mean, I think like there's gonna be a decent amount of decks that are just on the rise, and like they all do not seem good for you. Arceus, like, and North American players love their Arceus. Like
that's true.
They love Arceus, so I wouldn't put it past people to bring stuff that does really well in the block lax. And if I were to recommend to the average player, I'd be like, please pick up block lax. Like you'll do fine. Like it'll be a good deck, but you're not going to win the tournament with it. Like
right.
Pretty much. And I wouldn't even recommend chien-pao for this one or Lost Box. I'd be like, yo, you better just bring the Zard. Like I think Zard is probably perfectly fine for this one. Like I don't think that there's anything wrong with it.
It is a really great deck, and honestly, I would agree with you on that point. I think that Zard is a great play for this upcoming weekend. I think that you have to build it a little bit different because you have to get around those other decks. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's honestly the best position Zard's been in a little bit. To bring to an event. Now, another reason I want to touch on why it might be really good is because we've kind of figured out the Dialga matchup too, right? Dialga's been a huge deck rising up. People have wanted to play this card since it's been printed, haven't had a way. Now, we saw it come to fruition by DDG bringing the Dialga Spice to Indie Regionals and, winning the event. Shout out to you, Andrew, Hedrick, and team for bringing this deck. I know that we were hot on it too for Shuffle Squad. Dan, I want to hop over to you. Do you think that we're going to see Dialga come back at this weekend and see some success again?
So those are definitely two very different questions.
Yeah.
Do I think we'll see it come back and be played a bunch? Yeah, absolutely. Because kind of like Aidan mentioned, the North Americans, like everyone is hyped about Dialga. That's so cool to see it actually be functioning, working, to be so successful.
Right.
Now, will we see it have a lot of success? I don't know. I know Aiden's kind of talking down stall, and actually I agree with pretty much all your points there, except for that someone random can pick it up and go 10-4-1. I think that's kind of hard to do, but
Nah, Snorlax does not take like any skill. You just
All
pick up the
right,
deck,
sure.
you draw cards, and then you eerie them, and then the game's over.
all right, yeah, I guess that's easy. Yeah, for sure. So I do think that Dialga is actually a little bit more skill intensive than it seems up front, and it also isn't the most consistent, because when you pull it off, you can absolutely like devastate your opponent. If you start Chronos into Metal Blast for 4 prizes, you're probably going to win every single game that happens.
Yeah.
But it's fragile. Metangs are kind of weak. It's hard to get them set up. You're still just trying to dig into your deck to hit what you need. There's now people do know how to play around it. So I don't think it'll have a ton of success. Probably people will make day 2 with it because it is really strong. But I think it kind of lost that like surprise overwhelming factor that it had in Indy. And you can kind of see, I don't think it was anywhere in Stockholm or in Santiago or anywhere really this month.
Yeah. I had a couple like flash in the pan events. Emily, what do you think about Dialga? I know that you love metal decks, right? Like Goldango. So Metang is an interesting character to add into the mix here. Obviously you want to be able to hit your metal makers to make the deck even work. Do you think that the average player who is just like, I like shiny thing, go burr, will try to pick up this deck and not know how to sequence properly?
So I like to say Metal Maker is the working man's electric generator. If I dare say so myself. Believe it or not, I was just having this conversation with somebody who wants to pick up Pokemon TCG.
Sure.
And when I recommend this game, I'm like, oh, pick up Zard.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Pick up Zard. But they're like, hey, I'm really interested in Dialga. And I'm like, okay, what makes you interested in Dialga? And they brought up a really good point that it can help you learn sequencing pretty well, right? It can kind of help you be like, all right, I know I have X amount of energy attached to the board. I know I have X amount of energy in discard. Do I use my Super Rod now? And, like push up these chances of hitting these metal makers. And I actually really like that deck for teaching. Big shout outs, of course, to like that whole testing group for really bringing Dialga. I've played against it a couple times, and when it's piloted by a really good player, it absolutely does fire off. But I think if you're gonna just like go to LA regionals and be like, all right, well, I don't really care, I'm just gonna play a deck, I'll just bring Dialga. I have like 2 games on it on live. Metal Makers work twice. I don't think you're going to do well, but I think if you've like put in some decent time with the deck and be like, all right, these are my win conditions. I know exactly how to, like I said, count that metal energy and really kind of get things pushing and like going through, then you're going to do, great. But I think more and more people are prepared now for the Dialga, but as stated earlier, Star Chronos into another 2 prizes. That one hurts.
Yeah, it's the working man's yoga loop.
It's the working man's electric generator. That's it.
So we're going to talk about the next big segment here. I want to have this be a segment for a lot of our meta forecasts going forward. So we're going to start it off here. You get to witness it first if you're watching this video here on YouTube. But Aidan, we're going to start off the segment called If You Were Recommending. So if you were recommending a deck for LA, you kind of touched on it already, one deck that you were recommending. If you were recommending somebody that's going for championship points, solely championship points, not to win the event, what deck would you recommend to that person?
So, okay, if they don't want to win the event, they're already there, and their number one idea should just be to have fun. Like, I'm just gonna say that if you want championship points, your main goal should be to win the event. That's like what your first mindset should be. But if you're just there and you'd be happy with getting championship points, I'm assuming you're just going because like you're just trying to have fun, just trying to have a good time. Because like really, if you want championship points, you want to win the event. So, I'm gonna say Great Tusk Mill. I think that is probably like the most fun experience that you will have. You'll have a quick time winning, and you'll have a quick time losing. Like it's gonna be both ends of the spectrum. You're gonna have a lot of fun. I think you could probably pull like a 6-3 record with it.
Sure.
And like you'll have a lot of fun. I mean, if you day 2 with it, that's even better. You're gonna get a limitless page with Great Tusk Mill. Like how many people can say that? I know I think Stefan played it to Stockholm. Like Hey, if a player of Stefan's caliber, it's multiple NAIC champion, like, come on, bro. Like, that the deck's gotta be good, right?
I know. I've been talking to. I was talking to All Up Blitzel, who's James. James was also talking to Stefan about the list right before Stefan played it. We've been going back and forth on Great Tusk Mill. I brought it to locals. They absolutely hated me. You put a Ditto and a Mawile on the list and you body Dialga. It is pretty fun. It's definitely a fun deck. I would agree with you on all points there, Aiden. So hopping over to you, Emily, you're going to be next here. What deck would you recommend to a person going? We're going to flip the script. If they want to win the event, what deck are you recommending to a player?
Why are you asking the person that hasn't top 8 in a regional match?
I want to get your perspective. I want to get your perspective.
Well,
all right,
I'm
just say
gonna answer
Goldengo.
both. Come on, man. Not my bid. Anyway, so don't listen to the two people that aren't here every week that top 8 things. Okay, for you and me, our viewer that are just there to have fun, I want you to play what you know. Okay, if you've been going to locals with whatever you've been going to for the past 2 months, and you're just like, maybe I'll switch my deck before LA regionals. Don't do that. Play what you know. If you want to go win the event, you don't need to play any specific deck. Just play an Airy. Like, seriously, just pull out one of these. Just listen. Play like one Luminion, like 57 energies, and like 3 of these. You'll be just fine. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Play Charizard. I think Charizard's a good deck. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. It is kind of well positioned. Practice your matchups, but I will always say yes. Go and play Goldango. It draws you a lot of cards. It draws you a bunch of cards. I know I'm memed on now on the Shuffle Squad because I believed in it for so long, but I am switching decks post format because I can.
It won a special event. Like, it won Puerto Rico. It was table 1.
Listen, all I'm saying is every single time somebody else does well with the deck, everyone's like, well, what about you, Goldango Master? And I'm just like, I'm just happy for everybody else doing well with it. But yeah, play what you know. But if you want to have some fun and draw some cards, coin bonus.
There you go.
That's it. That's my bid.
Dan, we're going to hop over to you. Dan, what deck would you recommend to a player that wants to go and make their first day 2 at an event?
I was going to say, I have so many thoughts on what everyone else said. I'll start with that. So to make their first day 2, I'm actually going to steal Emily's answer. Play the deck you know best, with the caveat of if it's a tier 1 or tier 1.5 deck. Like, if you've been playing Raging Bolt for months and months and you're a pro with it, the odds are still not in your favor to make day 2. You could, but not in your favor. But if you've been playing Zard, if you've been playing chien-pao, if you've been playing even Dialga for months, you feel great about it, bring that, because whatever like gap you'll have in perfect meta call, stuff like that, you'll more than make up for it from playing optimally. And like being able to make the best decisions, take the best actions, put yourself in the best position. I will say, I just want to comment on what Aiden said, though, about the, like, if you want CP to win the event. I actually completely disagree. Granted, I say this as probably someone who's not the same caliber of player, and I'll own that. But I think it's a different goal set. So if you want to win the event, I think you have to maybe be more aggressive in your list and how you tech. Because maybe you can't lose to Snorlax if you want to win the event. But if you want to get top 16, top 32, just to have a better spread overall, maybe you say, all right, cool, I'm just going to lose to Snorlax. Knowing that if I hit 2 Snorlax, I can't get top 8, but I'll still be locked in for those other 10, 11 wins. So I think you can try to aim for a high tier placement and accept losses that would probably prevent you from winning the whole event, and still say it's the best call for me to have success. That success being somewhere in the like top 16 to top 64, 128 range, rather than I'm going to try to high roll a little bit, make sure I can cover everything, and say I'll draw hot enough to account for the variance from not playing the like perfectly consistent list.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know, Aiden, if you see. I just
dodged the Snorlax like a Giga Chad.
The plot armor is strong.
I take back everything I said. Aiden's got it. Yep. That's exactly it.
We've got plot armor. We don't have our plot armor champion Alex Szymanski on this one here, but yeah, it definitely can happen for sure. All right, we're going to hop over to the boring question before we hop into the not boring question. So we are going to talk about prep and the 3 big meta share decks. So let's talk about some prep. Going back to you, Aidan, are there some things that you would do in preparation for LA, or some normal things that you do for preparation for big regional events?
Okay, so they have to be normal. So that rules out a couple of things. So let's go, and I'll say make sure you're very hydrated. Like, as you can see, Dan, taking a couple sips of water. I actually unfortunately left my water bottle in the other room, so I'm actually not doing what I'm saying, telling the people to do. But yeah, staying hydrated is a big thing. Drink some water. Bring some fluid with you, vodka, water, whatever you prefer. I don't know if you could do that at a Pokemon event, so probably don't do the alcoholic beverages, but for sure do water, something with electrolytes, something to keep your fluids going. Yeah. For sure, submit your deck list the night before. There's been a numerous amount of times that I have either done it the morning of, or one time I flew to Australia and forgot to do it. So that was also very fun. Still made day 2 somehow, but we don't talk about that. Yeah, I mean, submit your deck lists, prep, and then the big decks is just gonna be, you're gonna for sure have to prepare for some Zard, some chien-pao, and some Lost Box. Those are the 3. It's pretty set in stone, I'd say. These are the 3 most popular decks going into the weekend. Make sure you practice your matchup. Whatever you're playing, make sure that you I don't think you could take a auto loss to either 3. You could take like a bad matchup, but it's winnable. Wouldn't take an auto loss to either 3 of those. I mean, Lost Box is a very broad concept too. So I mean, like, but I'd say specifically like the Turbo Lost Box, like Hermione's deck, because Hermione's deck was a really good list, and that's a really good base for a lot of people to go off of to create lists for this event.
All right.
And I think a lot of like good US players will be picking up the Lost Box and running it for this one.
I agree with that. All right, Emily, on to you. What type of things do you do to prep before a big event, and what do you think the top 3 decks are going to be?
Okay. This might be a long one. Go to your locals. You're going to get the best matchup practice by going to your locals. I always watch Nerd Rage Gaming's locals, and I watch their cup over the weekend. I want to go out and cast for you guys, by the way, and that's a conversation we'll have after the podcast. Go to your locals. Live is great. It's a great tool, but it's not going to be that expert matchup help that you truly need. I very much agree with Aidan. Stay hydrated. I'll tell you guys a story. I was on a hot run at San Antonio, and I come from the Smash community, and we have this very superstitious thing where once you're in tournament, once you're going, you don't go to the bathroom, you don't eat. Okay. So I was just like, all right, I'm about to day 2. I was sitting at like 5-1. I was like, I just need one more. I'm going to do it. And then I did not do the lunch break. I basically was powered through. Worst mistake of my life. I started Mareep attach pass for like the next 2 rounds, and there went my day 2. Bring a small snack, eat something, talk to your friends in between rounds. I know for me, sometimes I get a little heightened, get a little nervous playing. So like, bring your friends, talk, have a good time, though. That's like the most important thing. Have a good time, but definitely go to your locals and prep. Definitely eat something during Swiss. It's 9 hours. It's a whole work shift playing Pokemon, okay? Eat, please.
What about your top 3 picks for the weekend?
Ooh, forgot.
It's okay.
This one's gonna be a little controversial.
Sure.
It is going to be Charizard chien-pao Ancient Box. Okay. I still think the Dinos can still run it. I know people are like, it's a bad deck. But
you have a bad deck.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I still think Dinos are doing the thing. I mean, I think Roaring Moon Baby and Big Roaring Moon Big Boy, they could still do it.
The Dinos.
So I still think Dinos. Big Dino Nuggets fan.
Got it. Very cool. Same question for you, Dan, here. Prep. We'll start off with that part of the question.
Yeah, I think going to locals is awesome. I love to watch the Nerd Rage stream. I actually think, like, totally biased here, obviously. I actually think it is a really good place to go. And I think watching content that is actually valuable, has good feedback, review, commentary, like just watching games and playing games is good, but it isn't helpful unless it's actually good directed feedback. So playing games at locals, I'll say, yes, it's good, but unless you're stopping, unless you're asking what you could do better, unless you're checking out different lines, it's not going to be as valuable as kind of that dedicated testing. So go to locals, but try to make the locals really valuable for you. Obviously watch this. This is actually really helpful prep going into a regional to learn about deck lists, things that change, stuff like that. Watch YouTube videos, read articles, whatever it may be. Talk to your friends, talk to smart, wise people that know how to play the game, who are better deck builders than you, whatever. But really just do all the homework, like leading up to the event. So that way, when you walk in the door, you know about as much as you possibly can, and you're prepared. And then day of, I live off of Pop-Tarts and beef jerky at regionals, not because of like any great diet pattern, but like protein, carbohydrates, keep your blood sugar up, and then ton of water all day. Like your body functions better if you have fuel. So do that. And like Emily said, talk to your friends, have fun. I started doing way better when I started focusing on just trying to enjoy and be a positive person and engage well and like care about being a good person in the game and in the community more so than actually winning. Because you do all the prep leading up to it. And then in the moment, if all you can think about is winning the game, you're going to distract yourself from actually playing the game effectively. So just be in the moment, relax, and have fun with it. Because all the hard work and all the stress is done leading up to the event.
Exactly. And I'm a big fan of keeping Cliff protein bars and applesauce packets in my bag. That's for sure been the way. And honestly, I have more fun at an event when I have done all the prep beforehand and I'm ready to submit my list and not even have to do testing the night before. Maybe change a couple cards after doing some testing with some friends or the team. So we'll pop to the second question here. What do you think the top 3 meta decks are going to be for LA?
I think Charizard's going to be up there. I think chien-pao is still going to be up there. I think the third one could flip between like... I don't think Lugia. Hopefully not Lugia, but I could see either ancient stuff. I could see even like future hands sneaking up there, but my guess would be probably either Dialga or if you count everything, Lost Zone box. I do think control stuff, if you combine, it's going to be in the top 5, but probably not top 3.
Gotcha. Okay, I could see that. On the meta share, I could definitely see a Snorlax or something like that. But as far as it goes, I do think that Charizard, chien-pao are definitely top 2, as always, as they have been. Hopefully, maybe in the future, another deck can change that for us leading into NAIC here coming up pretty soon. So now the favorite part, as everybody knows here at the end of these meta forecasts, we're going to talk about spicy rogue decks, something that's unnatural, something that's awesome to see on stream here. We're going to see what Aidan thinks first. What is a deck that is different and spicy that you'd like to see do well in this tournament at LA?
Dude, okay. So I already gave up one of my cards. So I gave up Great Tuscan, so I have to say another one. Shoot, this is like really difficult. I will go ahead and say, is Banette like really?
I was totally gonna ask if I could use that one.
Can I use that one? Like it's like I think that's definitely a cop out, but like I think Banette is actually decently poised in this event. If you could just like dodge some Char, like you're gonna hit Charizards. Like that's I say that, and I've definitely played. I think I played India. I hit 1 Charizard out of all 15 rounds. So. I played Orlando and I had 0, so you definitely can play the event and not hit Charizard, but most likely you are going to hit a Charizard in your day. But like the matchup is like kind of close enough to where I could see you squeaking out some wins, spam them with memory skip once they do get the Zard out. Like you could figure some stuff out. Sometimes you could win the prize trade, not really though, but like you could figure some stuff out. And then like all your other matchups are just like free, like you beat all the Lost Box, chien-pao. I think Future Box is a fine matchup because like your guys are just big. And like Ancient Box has to be a fine matchup. Your guys are big. Oh wait, they're all weak to dark. Maybe not. But like I think your matchups all around are like fine, like good enough to where like, and like you take auto wins and you take some auto losses. Like I think I think it's like a good deck to play because it's like you just know what your fate is whenever you sit across from your opponent and they flip over their active Pokemon. And it feels like I definitely love playing decks like that to regionals just because it's like I know my matchup so well. I don't really have to like think gameplay wise as much as I would like in the moment, and it definitely helps me avoid ties because the one thing I hate the most at regionals is tying. That is like the one thing I hate the most. I've conceded to my opponents to avoid being in tie brackets. I just like do not like to tie.
Right.
And it's just like I'll take the tie if like I'm just losing the game, and there's like no other way that I could like do anything like and like most likely though, like I've been losing games too, and it's just like I just been like I'll just give it to you, man. It is definitely the one thing I hate the most at regionals.
For sure. All right. Well, Emily, I'm sure that you've got something locked and loaded here that's a spicy deck. Talk to me about something you would love to see do well at LA.
Who could have guessed that I would have held up Goldango for this portion of the podcast? All right, well, let me just be real.
Sure,
okay?
sure.
Yes, Goldango's a good pick. Why? You have a great chien-pao matchup. Dare I say that this Goldango right now is very flexible.
Mhm.
I threw in a Turo and an Eri in my Goldango list because you know why? Because it's great. I will give the proper shout outs though to Yele over in Europe and Jose who just won Puerto Rico because they have started to add different types of engines to Goldango that actually makes it really fun. Specifically in Europe, we're now seeing Barrel, and then I will say the first time I heard about Revaroom in Goldango was actually from Ryan Harris. Where you there look it up. Revaroom, you discard 1 energy from the hand and then you draw until you have 6 in the hand and then you coin bonus a lot and then you have like 10 or 12 in the hand.
Exactly.
My whole thing is with Revaroom is that like for me I like to keep the energy in the hand. I don't like to, get rid of it to just keep drawing it. I don't like to waste resources with Eri in the format. But I do think I would love to see Goldango, get its coins on over here in an NA top 8. We've seen it do it in EU. We saw it win Puerto Rico. Let's see it, get its flowers here in NA.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Goldango.
I've seen it even built even at locals. It has the psychic energy. You play a tulip. You don't need that item card anymore. You get the four psychics back. It's a thing.
All right, we're cooking too hard.
That's
a little bit too much. I would definitely rather play Goldango than like any other. I'd honestly, you set Goldango and Dialga in front of me, I'm picking Goldango 100 times out of 100. Yep. I'm not even lying. Like,
okay, that's
the
fair.
deck is just better. I would definitely not play the Revaroom though. That definitely seems a little definitely seems kind of bad.
Gotta try it. Don't knock until you try it. I just tried the barrel over the weekend in the cup, and I was like, oh, okay, so. It's very interesting, but Goldango all the way. It's still a little flexible.
Cool.
Definitely chooses the barrel.
All right, Dan. What is a spicy deck that you would love to see do well at this event?
So I think we've all kind of said the like control-y side of things is real good. I think coming in, especially at the end of the format, there was the Arceus control list that we're kind of squeaking into day 2, and one of them, Olive actually played it to top 4 at the Nerd Rage Cup on Sunday, and it is cool. It is interesting. It is very much a pure Arceus with like a Radiant Charizard thrown in there, and then a whole lot of disruption stuff.
Flutter Mane in there too.
Yep,
that's
exactly. So it wouldn't surprise me if that snuck into either like a top 8, top 16, something like that. Because if you hit like you do judge things well, and then you area after the judge disrupt and just all that, you can steal a lot of games.
Exactly. Okay.
Shout out to Olive, by the way.
Yeah.
That game versus Rafal at that cup was like heartbreaking to watch. Oh
to be fair, she literally squirreled into like match-winning boss the previous set, so I think she just used up all of her luck right there.
Man, that damn
That's
squirrel,
how that happens.
It gets you sometimes. It's just that one extra card that you need.
She just flipped it face up too. It was just like, I win. Just beautiful. It was a great moment.
Do not pass
Big
go.
Olive fan.
So I'm gonna throw one out here. Actually, I'll throw 2 out here, and I'll give reasons behind both of them. But they are pretty spicy and they're pretty out there. So hold on to your seats. The first one is going to be Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. Now, we did see Hisuian Zoroark V-Star make 3rd place at the late night event last week. So we did see it dominate over quite a few Lost Box, quite a few chien-pao. It's playing the Max Belt. It is really cool. It does have single prizers now in the Dodrio. So you can throw single prizers in those matchups that you're technically unfavored because you are a 2-prize deck. I do like it. I know there's a lot of fans of Hisuian Zoroark. So it could be fun to play if you just want to go and have a great time. could be an awful meta call in a room full of 1,000+ master players. So take it for what it's worth. Now, the other one where I think actually might have some legs to stand on is Ting Lu EX. Now, Ting Lu we haven't seen in a while, but there are some newer ways to play it, and I won't give out all of the spice. But you definitely can body chien-pao because you shut off the backs. You can body stall because you play enough switches and it just shuts off the stall abilities. You can move damage counters with Radiant Alakazam. It shuts off Mimikyu, so you're fine in your stall matchups. So there's 2 big matchups you're favored into. You can shut off Bibarels, so you can shut off a lot of the Arceus matchups. And it's pretty terrible to play as a Lost Box player if you spread damage around. So there's lots of good matchups. I think Ting Lu could be one of those decks that come out of nowhere at the last, regionals before we change formats. It could be funny. If you do it, props to you. I'll give you a high five at the event. But yeah, Ting Lu is my spicy deck for this event. So that's pretty much it. We'll wrap this up with a bow. I'll give everybody a chance to give some shout outs and plug their socials. We'll head right back over to you, Aidan, and you can do that.
Okay. Shout out my team, the Daily Grind. Shout out my other team, the Shuffle Squad, and shout out Grant Hayes. He's the GOAT. And also my Twitter is Khus Aidan. My Metafy should be something under Aidan Khus. I mean, like, I'm sure you could find it if you really search.
Great.
And I do coaching. I also do some classes. I'm not actually. That's cap. I definitely have not run a master class. I'm not like everyone else. Everyone else is like master class. Sign up for my master class.
Shout out to Metafy Pro and the
Metafy Pro. Yo, let's do a master class. I mean, PJ, you want to collab for a master class?
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm down.
Ting Lu Masterclass.
Ting Lu Masterclass. Yes.
Yeah, they have not heard Switch card exists in Lost Box.
All right. Let's hop back over to you. Any shout outs you want to give and socials you'd like to plug for us here?
Well, shout outs to my actual team, the Shuffle Squad. I almost said the sponsor squad. Shout outs to the Shuffle Squad. Shout outs to all of my locals, as I love all of them. And every single day I walk in, they're like, DSS Lyric. And I'm like, stop. So, yeah, don't do that to me. Shout outs to my stream community. YouTube content actually coming soon for my personal channel, which is really exciting. And that's like my plan over the summer is to travel to different Pokemon regions, make YouTube content. And yeah, I don't do Metafy, but I can teach you how to commentate. You ever want to learn, you can hit me
master
up on Twitter.
How are we doing this?
I don't have a Worlds invite like other people, so I don't know if I'll be at Worlds, but if anybody wants to give me all the money to go to Worlds and make content at Worlds, I'll gladly accept. But yeah, you guys can find me at NAIC next month. I'm really excited for that. Yeah, shout out to all those people.
Awesome.
I guess that's it for me.
There we go. And Dan, we'll hop right back over to you. Dan, who do you want to shout out and any socials you'd like to plug?
Yeah, shout out. Thank you guys for having me on here. Keep bringing me around. And then shout out to Nerd Rage Gaming, my sponsor, Buffalo Grove, Chicago. We just had our cup over the weekend. Had some actually freaking awesome games. So it's been a lot of fun kind of having that, building that community there. Shout out to the team. Guys been really good. We got Ryan and Rafal are very close and getting close to getting their Worlds invite. I think Ryan needs 3 points. So I'm hoping he gets there. And otherwise, my Twitter's Dan the Trainer 25. I post about Pokemon, and that's basically it. I'll comment on things. I don't post a lot, but yeah, if you want to follow me, I try to add some wisdom here and there. So thanks for having me on, BJ.
Yeah, anytime. And I'll just give my shout outs as normal to the Shuffle Squad, all of our lovely sponsors. Again, you can check all of those sponsors out down in the description of this video. Shout out to Advanced GG, our brand new sponsor for energy, sleep supplements, joint supplements, all the fun stuff. And you can get cool shakers there too. You can also check out TCG L store and get online codes and kayfabe as normal, all the normal things. Shout out to my wife and kids for putting up with me. Hi, Daddy loves you. We're here.
Those are the real goats.
Yeah, we're making this happen late at night, so you guys can get some entertainment value out of this. But We will be back next week for the NAIC meta forecast. You're going to want to stick around and check that out here on the Shuffle Squad channel. We will catch you next time.
Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.